Hello, Kurt Jackson here from KJ Financial in Liberty, Missouri on Retirement Bliss TV. Hey, thanks for checking out this installment of our educational video series on how Obamacare is going to impact us. If you haven't watched our video where we introduce you to Obamacare, then stop this video and go back and watch it, because without watching it, you're going to likely be missing a lot of the context that you need that will render this installment on how Obamacare is going to impact businesses, owners, make it a lot less effective for you. You really need to have that proper context from the first video to best understand the information here. You can find it in our library of videos on the right there. Look for Obamacare Introduction Installment 1. After you have viewed it, then feel free to come back here and check out this installment. I also encourage you to watch the entire series because it should help you better understand what you're facing, what we're all facing in the future. Now, this installment of Obamacare series focuses on how it's going to impact businesses. Most of our emphasis will be on businesses with more than 50 full-time employees, which is the trigger point where Obamacare requires businesses to offer health insurance or face a fine. So if you're an employer with more than 50 full-time employees or work for an employer with more than 50 full-time employees, here's what the employer is going to face. Obamacare requires certain essential benefits and health insurance plans for them to be qualified and to be able to avoid penalties for having them. The core plans, the plans that are going to be offered on the government exchanges, will be classified as bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Basically, they're designed to cover an estimated 60%, 70%, 80%, or 90% of your healthcare costs. You're responsible for the rest. So if you took the bronze, it would have the lowest premiums, but you'd have the highest risk, where the insurance company actuaries estimate you'd be paying 40% of your total cost for healthcare. Now, in order for businesses with 50 or more full-time employees to avoid the fine for not offering health insurance to their employees, they have to offer you at least a silver plan. If they don't, then they have to pay a fine. The fine is $2,000 per employee after a 30-employee exemption. So, a 100-employee business that didn't offer health insurance to their employees would pay $2,000 on 70 employees, or $140,000. If they do offer a group plan, the business has to pay at least 60% of the cost of the plan. But they only have to offer the coverage on the employee. Okay? They don't have to offer it on the employee's family. So obviously that could be offered on an additional basis with the employee bearing the cost. If the business pays anything less than 100% of the employee's costs, okay, and I've seen estimates where in 2014 that's likely to be $8,600 per employee, then the business has to provide the IRS with proof that the portion the employee paid was less than 9.5% of the employee's total household income. I wonder how a business is going to prove what their employee's total household income was. Okay? Well, my friends, that means the business is going to be saddled with the responsibility of getting a copy of the employee's previous tax returns from the employee. Yeah, you heard that right. They're going to have to dig into the employee's personal business and get that directly from the employee. If the business doesn't comply with this proof, or the cost the employee pays is more than 9.5% of their household income, remember, that's not taxable income, that's total household income. The business has not only paid all the premiums, but has to pay a fine of up to $3,000 per employee that this happened to. So make sure you understand this. If an employer provides an employee with health insurance and pays less than 100% of the cost, then they have to incur the cost to get the employee's tax returns and every other employee's to make sure that the employee is not paying more than 9.5% of their total household income. If the employee is paying more than 9.5% of their total household income, the employer then has to pay a fine or pay more of the employee's premium to make sure the employees aren't paying more than 9.5% of the employee's household income. That's a lot of risk and responsibility for an employee, or for an employer now, isn't it? Right? Are business owners going to want that added risk, that added responsibility, that added cost? If you were an employer, do you think you would want that much risk and responsibility? Would you want to delve into your employee's personal life that much? As an employee, do you want your employer to have to ask for your tax returns each and every year or run the risk of paying a fine? If the employer pays 100% of the insurance, the employer can avoid that responsibility. But remember, costs are going higher. Many are saying a 25 to 35% increase from 2013 to 2014. Do you think the costs are going to stay the same or continue to go up in the future? How many employers are going to want to cover the 100% of a huge cost that they have no control over? That's not smart business. Remember that they're only required to provide insurance for the employee. So, if the employee has a spouse and they don't get insurance from the employer, or their employer doesn't offer health insurance, or you have kids, then even though the employee has insurance through their work, the employee still has to provide insurance for the rest of their family or potentially face a fine. Now that fine is basically 1% of your total household income in 2014. It goes to 2% in 2015, and then it goes at 2016 and maxes out at 2.5%. Okay, that's what it is going forward. I realize there's a good chance you heard another smaller number, but if your income is low enough to pay that small amount, you'll likely qualify for Medicaid. Okay, so even if an employer is paying for insurance, chances are an employer won't pay for insurance on the employee's dependents. Right. For full disclosure on this penalty for the employee part, not the employer part, okay, as of now, Obamacare does not give the enforcing agencies, the IRS, much bite on how they can collect the fee. The only way they're allowed to collect it is to take it out of your tax refund. If you don't have a tax refund, they don't have a real way right now of collecting it. Okay? Take that for what it's worth. Okay, here's a hypothetical example, right? Let's assume the full coverage for an employee in a group policy is $8,500. If the employer has 100 full-time employees, it would cost them $850,000 to implement that, right? If we assume our employee has a family of 4, both adults are 45 with 2 kids. The spouse isn't covered at their job, so if the employee accepted the insurance, they would still have to get insurance for their spouse and kids, okay, or pay a penalty. Let's assume the maximum penalty will be what it is in 2016, okay? I want a worst case scenario. That's 2.5%. The employee makes $50,000, their spouse makes $30,000 for a total household income of $80,000. Their fine would be $2,000, okay? That's 2.5% of $80,000, and that's per year. It's about $167 a month. If the spouse and kids don't smoke, the cost of their coverage would be $8,161. That is $683 per month. If they did smoke, if the spouse smoked, it's $10,370 or $864 per month. Okay. Now look, from my understanding, since in this example the employee accepted health insurance from the employee does not get the subsidy. Okay, they don't get any help. That's how I understand it is right now. Isn't this another unintended consequence of Obamacare? So, do those numbers, $683 per month and $864 per month, sound very low to you? Remember, you're getting employee coverage through the employer, but you still have to pay this to cover your family. Okay, all right. That doesn't sound very low to me. So your options as the employee are to accept the employer-sponsored insurance, and you can either pay a $167 a month fine or pay the $683 or $864 per month to cover the family. I know neither of those options sound cheap. Now, if this business was one of my clients, here's what I would tell them. If we assume the situation this employee is in is common among their employees, have a household income of $80,000 or so, okay? Many, if not all their employees, would actually qualify for a subsidy, all right, if they go to the federal or state exchange. On the exchange, it's estimated that the silver policy to cover the whole family would be $12,549 or $1,046, and that's for non-tobacco. For tobacco, it's $16,907 or $14,09 a month. Oh wait, I almost forgot. With the silver plan, you pay these huge premiums, and your total out-of-pocket exposure is still $12,500 per year per family over and above your premiums. Okay, it's $6,300 for a single person. All right, great, honey. I got higher premiums and much higher out-of-pocket maximums. Boy, that's just an ideal plan now, isn't it? Now, in this example, we estimate the subsidy the employee would get would be approximately $4,949. So that leaves their monthly obligation at $633 or $997. Notice the amount to cover the family is really close to the $683 for the non-tobacco, or just $133 higher than the $864 for the tobacco that the employee would have had to pay with employer coverage. There's not much difference there. Keep in mind these numbers so far without any help from the employer. Now, remember, the employer with more than 50 full-time employees doesn't provide health insurance. All right, they have to pay $2,000 per year for fine for every employee minus the 30-employee exemption. So, our 100-employee employer would pay $2,000 on 70 employees, right? Or $140,000. Now, remember the exemption for the first 30 employees. That's not much of an incentive for an employer to pay for health insurance, is there? If the employer was actually ready to pay the $850, which I'm going to tell you that most companies will not want to do, But if they did, they would now have $710,000 to work with after they paid the $140,000 in fines. That's $7,100 a year, $592 per month per employee. So they could establish a cafeteria plan where they put that much into the employee's account each month, thus reducing the employee's monthly cost from $683 down and from $997 down to $405. Okay, that's a heck of a lot less than you would have had to pay if the employer bought the employee health insurance and the employee had to buy health insurance for their family. More than likely, the employer wouldn't want to do that much. Well, let's say that the employer wanted to save $110,000 and only had a budget of $740,000. We'd have $600,000 left after penalties. That's $6,000 a year, $500 a month. The employee would still have $500 a month to help offset that cost. Now, look, I know everyone wants to reduce their costs as much as possible, but I'm telling you that these new health policies won't be like what you're used to. I can't see why any business would want to offer a group plan and open themselves up to uncontrolled cost, more government oversight, having to pry into their employees' personal business, and paying more money when they could be paying less money. The good news, or maybe the not as bad news, is that it's better for the employer and better for the employee. It's not great, but it's better than the alternative that they would have had to take. Now, for those employers with less than 50 employees, okay, they don't have to do any of this. There are no mandates, and even though they're dangling tax breaks to offer them health benefits, they're only there for a couple years. And why in the world would a business owner want to open themselves up to that increased oversight, regulations, and higher costs? Okay, wouldn't it be smarter to have someone like me come in and show everyone how the system works and maybe supplement their employees with money to buy their coverage on the exchanges where many folks will qualify for subsidies, and maybe even help them buy some of the supplemental coverages to help control out-of-pocket expenses and give you better access, okay? For those folks that have incomes above 400% of the poverty level, it could very well be the smartest thing to just pay the fine and load up on the supplemental plans. Well, they're not designed to replace health insurance. I can definitely see where it could possibly do more for you on the things that you use healthcare most for, and only leave your maximum out-of-pocket expenses a little higher in a big medical event. But the monthly savings of the lower cost of these plans would likely make up for that potential cost rather quickly. I mean, if it costs you $500 a month or less in this type of structure, your out-of-pocket maximum is $2,000. You know, it only takes 4 months to have enough money to pay that. I'll get into those options a little bit more in the final video series, the potential solutions for Obamacare for everyone, okay? Hopefully, whether you're an employer or an employee, you can see why a business with more than 50 full-time employees would maybe want to opt out of paying for health insurance for their employees, even though they got to pay the fine, because it can actually be a win-win for the employer and the employee. The employer can save money, better control their costs, reduce their exposure to risk, keep their costs of compliance down, and give the employee more of what they want. The employee gets the most bang for their buck, keeps their dependents covered, avoids paying fines, and keeps their costs down somewhat. While it may not be as ideal as the situation before, it may be the best it's going to get under the new higher cost plans that Obamacare is creating. Look, I realize I didn't answer all the questions, but hopefully I opened the eyes to both the employer and the employee. Look, don't forget we've got 2 other videos about how Obamacare is going to impact seniors, and more in depth look how it's going to impact individuals and their families. I encourage you to watch those 2 videos, help you to better understand the far-reaching implications of Obamacare. I mean, if you're an individual, you may have a family, and if you aren't already a senior, I hope you aspire to be one someday in the future. You might as well get a better grasp on the impact it's going to have on you and that portion of your life. And lastly, don't forget to watch the solution video where I try to tie things in together. All right. Hey, thanks for taking the time to visit Retirement Bliss TV. The other educational videos in our ever-growing library of videos are listed on the right. Please check them out. There's a wealth of information in them. If you find these videos of value, please share the Retirement Bliss TV YouTube channel with your friends and family so they can have access to this valuable information too. Hey, if you got any questions or are ready to explore your situation, my contact information is on the screen there. Shoot me an email, give me a call. All right. Thanks for stopping in. Until we next meet, I hope you have a great day and a better tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.